What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the J-Rock Show here from the SimWorld TV studios here in Houston, Texas. You already know what time it is. I got another guest for this episode. Last time I had Coach Pope. This time I got another SimWorld U coach. I got my man, probably my favorite guest, my favorite broadcast partner. You already know who it is. Former Beast of the East, now with Syracuse, Assad Drayton. Coach Drayton, great to have you back on the pod, my man. How are we doing on this fine Friday?
I mean, it's always a pleasure being back here. You're definitely one of the best broadcasters. Definitely one of the best play-by-play guys. I mean, you do have a handsome running mate. He's kind of like the coach of Syracuse. I don't want to big him up too much. I think the guy's pretty cool.
Buttering both of us up too much, man. It's like I mentioned, great to have you back, man. We talk a lot of basketball during those stoppages in game time that the people at home don't really know about, and we tend to go quite deep down the rabbit hole.
I would say so much that Alice in Wonderland would have a run for her money if she's seen how deep in the rabbit hole we get when it comes to talking about basketball. I mean, we can start from one place and then go to another and probably talk basketball for the better part of 2 or 3 hours.
Yes, we get talkative, ladies and gentlemen, but we have a pretty interesting episode upcoming. We have some teams that are on some hot streaks. It's interesting to see how they're gonna fare come Hoopsteria. We're gonna talk about this number one pick debate with the something that Marsh brought up on the Marsh pod, which is the underclassmen versus upperclassmen being selected with the number one pick. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit. And we're also going to talk about this week in SimWorld U, because there's been a lot of intrigue, a lot of rumors, including Lamar and Sherwood's return. So let's not waste any time, Coach Drayton. But let's start, as always, with our performer of the week. And this is a very fun player. My man down in Virginia Tech, Travion Novick, was a JK's player of the night. And dude is really looking like he can be a Naismith player of the year dark horse.
I mean, when you're talking about Virginia Tech, they're one of those teams that literally competes at all three levels. They just play good, solid team basketball, and I'm somebody who really is like deep in the team fundamentals. So when you're talking about the player of the week and it's somebody from Virginia Tech, it's really one of those things where like they all are the player of the week because it's this guy shining this week, but next week it'll be somebody else, and then the week after that it'll be somebody else. I think they're just one of those. I don't want to say they're a complete team, but I definitely think, without a doubt, that they're a contender for Hoopsteria.
I'm going to agree. My big concern with Virginia Tech is that Travion Novick's a guy that's not really known for his shooting. Same thing with Newly Cox. But I do like that they're a good shooting team and that they're in the ACC, which is probably the most talented conference in all of SimWorld. You got Duke, UNC, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. A lot of teams, you're playing top flight talent, and I think that, and given that they have so many quality wins, I think that's going to serve them well in the next couple of weeks.
I mean, they're a team when you look at them top to bottom, they don't have. I don't want to say they don't have flashy names. It's not somebody that you'll be like, oh yeah, this is the guy I'm gonna build my team around in the SWBA. But it's one of those teams where like the guys are a little older, they understand the system, they really play well together, and sometimes people forget that it's not the diaper dandies that make the big long runs in Hoopsteria. It's usually the older guys.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not really a freshman's game, and it's not really a forwards game either. It's kind of where these more experienced guards tend to step up. It's why teams like Maryland, UCLA, even Tennessee are teams I expect to kind of do some damage if Tennessee even gets in, because they're led by go-to scorers, at in the backcourt that have no shortage of like experience, and they're just phenomenal scorers. You know, I love Jalen Snow, man.
I mean, the snowman is definitely, I think anybody, and I was definitely one of them. I'm all fair. Somebody probably has the recording up. They were definitely. I was not a fan of his game. I kind of felt like he was a watered down James Harden. Like you're gonna get good plays out of him, never great plays out of him. And this season, he kind of showed that like he can do it all. I mean, I would of course I would want him at the as the two guard. I would want him to do a little bit more playmaking than he does, but I think he's proven to be an elite scorer.
Yeah, and it's same thing with him and CKC. I think it's kind of a coin flip as to who the superior scorer is, but I'm more of a Jalen Snow guy because Jalen Snow, that Snow step back is beautiful. Like, let's not get it twisted here, man. It's this guy's 20 years old, 21. He's older, but he's still a guy where you can build a franchise around him because of what he can offer in offense.
I mean, when you're talking about what you can offer guys, it's always one of those things where like people try and downplay how good some of the seniors in the upperclassmen have been going into the draft, and that to me is like asinine. I 100% think that a 23, 22-year-old can be the number one pick in the draft. Like if and I don't think it would happen. If Jamison Johnson decided to come back for a senior year, I wouldn't magically be like, well, Jamison Johnson is not capable of being a top three, a top four, top five pick because he's 22 now. No, I would 100% say that you would be in the minority that wouldn't pick somebody that's this good at basketball.
Yeah, and he's Jamison Johnson. Like, he's proven time and again that he is fantastic. But Kentucky not looking great right now. Back-to-back losses. Jamison Johnson not the best stretch of his SimWorld U career. Something like I find to be very interesting. But you make a good point. It's unprecedented. We haven't had a number one pick be a senior since Kenyon Martin. And Marsh made a very good point that it's rare, but now that there's this no freshman can go to the SWBA rule, sophomores and juniors can take advantage. We're seeing guys stay back now, VIL, the transfer portal. Like, you're going to see more experienced players stay back in college for more. They can make more money compared to being a late first, early second round guy. And it gives them the opportunity to kind of shine a bit, like to refine their games, have SWBA teams like them. We saw Ochai Agbaji, a senior, go in the lottery a couple years ago. Like, guys in the lottery, like, just because you're older, you can still go in the lottery. These guys there's just there. I would say maybe that their floors are lower and their floors are higher and their ceilings are lower, but they can still help a team immediately. There's just going to be less of a developmental period, and I think that's what people are really, really forgetting.
I mean, when you think about it, definitely to me, drafting a senior seems like a more safe pick. And those seniors that stay with one program for 4 years, those guys seem like super safe picks to me because this is somebody who is willing to learn and master this system. It's hard for me to believe that a freshman, especially in the previous years where you could do the one and done, that they actually learned the system. That a lot of times the coach couldn't implement a full playbook because he's well aware that this guy's not going to be here next year. So there's parts of the playbook you don't include. There's stuff you don't. I'm not going to say you don't bother to teach, but you're well aware teaching this to this kid is in one ear and out the next because he knows he's going to the SWBA. And I kind of think of it like similar to the SWFL, where the guys that stay for multiple seasons and usually leave their senior or their redshirt senior year, or the guys that had the COVID year, those guys generally are more polished products. They usually the waiting period isn't there for them. They usually come onto the scene, understand what they're supposed to do, show up and blow up. Like for example, Jaden Daniels didn't have a real waiting period with Washington. He kind of showed up and blowed up. Versus when you compare a few years prior, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. That whole draft class, all of them had like a long waiting period, and some of them still haven't become actual SWFL quarterbacks to the extent that they were supposed to be. And I'm not necessarily saying that's like a knock, but if I have to pick, give me Malcolm Brogdon over some guy that I have to teach fundamental basketball all over again.
I agree with that. The upside might be lower, but you're still got a guy like Cooper King Cross, still a very polished product, like you mentioned. These guys, especially with these new rules, juniors are the new sophomores, and an extra year in college can help guys translate to the SWBA. We've seen it. Ja Morant stayed 2 years in college. Miles Bridges stayed 2 years in college. These are guys who are very good contributors for SWBA teams who you can build your team around. It's just going to kind of reevaluate the way teams look at these players. You bring up the SWFL, Drayton, and that whole class, like Wilson and Fields, that was a product of COVID. This is no longer COVID. This is a product of a new SimWorld U landscape. And a guy like Lamarian Sherwood, I'm passing on him at number one. But I'm not passing on him at number one because he's a senior. I'm passing on him at number one because I believe that Jamison Johnson, Jalen Snow, and Cooper Kingy Cross are all more polished players. I'm not drafting a 90s big man with the number one pick in the modern SWBA. That's just stupid.
And see, to an extent, I disagree with you on him being a '90s big man because I don't like that term of like classifying when somebody was playing as the type of big man. I'm gonna say that he's a back to the basket kind of big man. He's gonna bang in the low post, stuff like that. But ultimately, I wouldn't take him number one purely because I don't think his skill set, or rather his ceiling, is as high as a Jamison Johnson. Or if you want to take a gamble on a guard and go Jalen Snow or Cooper Kingy Cross, those guys generally their ceilings seem like they're way higher than his. Like, and when you have those guards, the Cooper Kingy Crosses, the Jalen Snows, and then you have and I don't know how the lottery is gonna go. The lottery is my least favorite thing about pro basketball. But when you put some of these guys in the lottery, it then becomes team need, and if it is the Jazz that end up having the number one pick, they already have a non-functional offensive big in Walker Kessler, who let's be honest, he's not gonna score. He can give you points, but he's not the type of guy where you're like, all right, we have him on the court because he's a dominant scorer. He's gonna dominate offensively. No. And then Lamarian Sherwood is not necessarily a dynamite defender. He becomes one of those picks where I could see him out of the top five, if I'm being honest, and it has nothing to do with his age, more so his skill set.
Exactly. Like, I don't like big men in a positionless era of basketball that kind of are boxed into one thing. Well, Marion Sherwood, if he had like even a Jameson Johnson level jumper, I would draft him number one. But the fact of the matter is, he doesn't, and his ceiling is lower than Jameson Johnson's for that reason. He's a year younger, and I like Jameson Johnson's game more. I think that he's more worthy of the number one pick for a team like that. But frankly, even if, let's say the Jazz do get it, I think they have more reason to draft a guard like a Cooper Kingy Cross because that'll put butts in seats more than Omar and Sherwood will.
I mean, it's just one of those things where when you talk about building a franchise, people often only think about the basketball aspect of it. You said put butts in seats, and people don't understand how important that is. There's not a team if we don't sell tickets. It's just that simple. If if nobody comes to the games, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's a business first. And I
Exactly.
also I don't think he's box office. I think he's good, great even. I just don't think he's box office. When I think of players that the young kids would want to see and would be excited to see play, his name doesn't necessarily come up. Now I understand that college loyalists and people who love the college game will probably disagree with me and be like, well, anybody can be a star. I mean, how many people are are running out to buy Jokic jerseys. I don't think Jokic is box office. I think he's a great player. I would argue he's top three in the NBA as far as talent goes. But you're not necessarily running out to see anybody be like, "Yup, I just copped a Jokic jersey." No, that doesn't happen. And when people avoid the business aspect of it, people then just talk about the numbers. He's a Naismith Player of the Year candidate, this, that, and the third. But can he sell a jersey? And I think that's a part of the reason why people didn't understand why Bronny James was picked. You could say that he didn't have the talent, he didn't belong, but I don't think there's a rookie that even comes close to him in jersey sales. Butts in seats and jerseys being brought is more important necessarily than winning games. To the owner, anyways.
To most smart people in this industry at that, Coach Drayton, because think about a guy like Jalen Snow. He's like kind of more brash. He's kind of known to be a bit of a personality. He's got the Snow step back. He's got the offensive game, and not to mention he's a junior and he's a fantastic talent. I think people are forgetting that a player who has that sort of charisma could do great things if he's selected high enough to warrant that, because he'll put butts in seats, he'll sell jerseys. He's playing in LA right now. The big markets don't really faze him. He's at UCLA, so obviously he knows how to handle some critical media. I think Jalen Snow is more primed to be an SWBA star than any other player in SimWorld U right now, and I think that that is a hill I will die on for the rest of the season.
And you know what? I actually agree. If he was taken number one, I wouldn't be like, oh, what are the Jazz doing? One, generally people love guards going number one. I don't know why, but it's one of those things where people love to see a guard go number one. And then people love somebody that other teams are gonna hate. Naturally, you draft Jalen Snow. Half of the United States already hates Jalen Snow because he plays on the UCLA team, and he talks like he's one of the few God's gifts to basketball. He's one of those extreme personalities. You love him to have him on your team. You hate him if you got to play against him. I think he makes a valid point to be the number one pick.
Like, I think Cooper King Cross, I think his argument might be better. Like, people are, I think there is a little bit of prospect fatigue actually going on with Cooper Kingy Cross, because he was like a number one pick guy for a long time, and then Maryland started dropping games, and it was a question of he has no help. Is he even the Naismith? Like, Cooper Kingy Cross is just as good, if not better, than Jalen Snow. I like Jalen Snow more, but like I said, you can really prefer either of those guys, because I think they should be the 1-2 in this draft, and I think Jameson Johnson should be 3, and then Lamar and Sherwood should be 4 or 5. And a guy like CKC, because he's on a team that, like, Maryland's a good team, but they don't have any other star talent. Like, Jameson Johnson's got Glory Tate, Jalen Snow's got LaGerald Carroll. That's 2 other first-round projected guys. Cooper Kingy Cross is carrying the offensive load by himself, and I think it kind of has people forgetting what he's really capable of.
I kind of disagree with you as far as CKC's landing spot. I think while he's an amazing talent, he kind of doesn't have personality. When you pick a guy, it's like I'm not. There's nothing wrong with Drew Holiday. Definitely to me, an all-time great guard. But nobody again. They're not running out of their seats for a Drew Holiday jersey. He's one of those guys that if you're a casual fan, you're like, my team picked up Drew Holiday. Who is this guy? Why are we paying him this much money? It's because he doesn't really have a personality. And people forget how important that is when drafting somebody, that you have to get somebody that the fans are enamored with. That even when they're playing bad, there's somebody that fans can look forward to playing, that can look forward to them playing. They have to get excited for this guy because ultimately this has to be the face of the franchise. Nobody wants the face of the franchise to be just another guy who clocks in, clocks out, doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything. He has no personality. If he didn't play basketball, he'd be another 6'4" guy that you see at a store. We can all agree that Cooper Kingsley Cross is one of the most talented prospects in basketball history. But a part of drafting somebody is you get their personality. And what does he do to separate himself when his teammates don't step up? He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm the leader. I'm the dog. I gotta fight. We're gonna win because I'm here." No, he just kind of accepts it.
I think you can
When
make a.
his team,
I think you make a similar argument
when
for Sherwood though. What personality does he have? The only thing I've seen from him all year that like resembled a personality was when I believe it was Harvard. Their fans were booing overrated him, and he just like shushed the crowd. Like that was really the only time we saw anything out of him.
I want to say, and I could be wrong. I'm hoping somebody will fact check me on this. During the preseason, Sherwood had announced that he was gonna win like Player of the Year or something like that. That he was like really overzealous in like his ability, and like he was saying that he was that guy, and now he's just showing it with his play. I do think that he can be one of the more extreme personalities, but like it's right. D Woodley is a guy that typically does not have SWBA size. He doesn't, especially because he's really a shooting guard, but he has to play point guard because he's like 5'10". When you talk about him, he's a player that constantly gets brought up, even though he doesn't have the most amazing numbers, because he bigs himself up. He literally is always talking about himself. If you bring up guards and you don't mention him, he's gonna be like, "I'm better than that guy." And most people would be like, "No, he's not better than that guy," but he would argue it. So if he fell in the second round and stuff like that, he becomes one of those Bronny James as players to where like while the talent may not be there, he can definitely develop into a talent. But he's somebody that people want to see. You want to when somebody's always talking, there's only two ways to approach it. Either you love them and you want to see them shine, or you hate them and you want to see them fail. And regardless, that puts butts in seats.
Exactly. You just want to give people, make them feel some sort of emotion, whether it's positive or negative, and D Woodley does that, and he's doing this at a mid-major school, mind you. He's at Jackson State, and he's got feathers ruffled. Well, Lamarian Sherwood, he's at Iowa. That's a big name school in the Big Ten. Yet he's in the middle. He's in Iowa City, Iowa, and isn't considered to be that interesting. It
So
maybe we'll see more from him in a
I,
bigger market.
I would say that he's one of those guys that, again, I'm like I said, I already said I wouldn't take him number one. I mean, Sherwood is it's why I would say I wouldn't take him number one. He's one of those guys that like the talent is there, but people forget how important it is to be a likable person or be a villain, because there's guys all the time, right? You hear people's and it's to me stupid, but again, I'm a coach. You hear people talk about Jason Tatum being auralist, that he has no swag. Everything he does seems copied and manufactured. And ultimately, as much as I'm like, what does that have to do with basketball? That's people's take on him, and it stops him from people saying that he could be the face of the NBA. Versus Wimby from day one said that he's that guy. He said nobody in his class was better than him, and he gave the most backhanded compliment to Scoot Henderson of all time. He was like, "Oh, he's a great player. He'd probably be number one in this draft if I wasn't born."
See, like if Jason Tatum didn't feel so boring, I think he would resonate better. But at least he's making people feel something because he's a guy on the Celtics that is still a franchise level player. And I think this draft, if you look deep into it, Drayton, it has a lot of guys who have franchise player potential. A guy who I actually really love in this class, who I think will probably won't even last out of the top 10, is Madison Miles. He plays for Kansas. He's a big name, and he's been actually balling for this Kansas team over the last month or two. Like, and he's a sophomore, so he's one of these younger guys who has more untapped potential.
I mean, and this is gonna get me so much flack, but I'm ready for it. I generally don't believe in Big 12 talent. It's one of those conferences where it's like overstated how good these guys are, and then they're like, oh, this guy, this, that, and the third. I have to see more.
I can understand that because if you're not on Kansas or Texas, I'm really not super wowed. So I can understand it, but this is Kansas and this is still a Bill Self program. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, giving him the benefit of the doubt is kind of different than giving Kansas the like. I think Madison Miles is good, but again, that when you're talking about the top 10 of the draft, these are guys that are supposed to come in and change the franchise in one or two ways. Either you get a guy that's going to be a villain, and it's really easy to be a villain in the SWBA, or you're a guy that's so beloved that you're like a media darling. And I don't think we're in the age of any more synthetic media darlings. Like I think we got to see a lot with like Stephen Curry's one of those guys that to me is like a manufactured media darling. That it really doesn't matter what he does. The media is never gonna cover Stephen Curry in a non-glamorous light. They're not gonna be like, oh, Stephen Curry, he threw his mouthpiece. He's an angry guy. No, they're never gonna cover him like that. I think those guys kind of don't exist anymore. That the media has created those guys, and they won't do that again because it leaves them in a place where they can't talk about those guys.
Like Josh Allen's a guy who in the SWFL who kind of gets that media darling reputation. Like they kind try to give it to Patrick Mahomes, but people just don't like him because of how dominant the Chiefs have been. But you make a good point with that media darling comment where there's so many moving parts when it comes to picking high in the draft. And so you make a good point in that regard because we're in an era now where people love to have Twitter fingers and hate on players on social media. And we're going to see that with a lot of guys in this class. And I think a guy who's going to start getting a lot of that in the next couple of weeks, months, especially with him returning, is Lamarian Sherwood because he's older and I don't know how translatable his skill set truly is.
I wish him the best. I wish Iowa the best because when you're a player returning from injury, especially in injury in basketball to anything on your arms, when you gotta shoot, you gotta make layups, you gotta defend. Arm injuries always seem way more crucial. It's like leg injuries in football, but I think we get to see it's one of those like put up or shut up things that like if he comes back from this injury and can make Iowa into like a deep run team in Hoopsteria, if by some chance, literally some chance, he comes back and gets this team to make a deep run, and while he's doing it, he shows personality, I think he can move himself up into the top three. I again, it's hard for me to see anybody other than maybe Jamison Johnson or a guard going number one purely because of like how easy it is. The players that are hated generally are always easier to go higher in the draft, right? You have guys like LaMelo where he
Zach Edey,
generally they're just guys that you just even if the talent isn't there, and I'm not saying either of those guys aren't talented, when they're just generally just easy to hate, it becomes so easy to pick them because it instantly becomes a talking point.
yeah, and it makes
And the
it easier to
moment
cover them, like what I do.
and the moment talking points happen and people can't stop bringing this guy up for whatever reason, you have people that are like so contrarians that like would literally just love to support a player just because they think everybody else hates them.
Yeah, I actually think that's a fantastic point. And I think to conclude this episode of the J Rock Show, we're right around the corner with Hoopsteria. A lot of teams are getting hot at just the right time. So let's kind of do some rapid fire contenders or pretenders with some of these teams that are getting hot. I'm going to give you some three teams. I want you to give me some brief analysis of what you think they're capable of come Hoopsteria. And let's start with Wisconsin. The Badgers have won 5 in a row, beat Michigan State on Wednesday. Don't ask me my thoughts on it, but they're getting hot at just the right time. Greg Gard is a good coach, but a much younger roster. Are you a believer in them to not only make Hoopsteria but to win a couple games in Hoopsteria?
No, absolutely. I think they're a pretender. As sad as that may sound, I don't see them as a deep run team. I do think that they're young and they have talent. So if not this year, a year or two down the line, I would say that yes, this could be a dangerous, scary team, or what may have you. But as of right now, no, I don't see them past the first round. I don't see them past the first round.
If they even get in, that is. But this is another team. Four straight for the Auburn Tigers and Bruce Pearl. Barkley James and Bevanson Patches are a really fun freshman duo. But do they have what it takes to ruffle some feathers this year, or are they another team that's a year away?
I think they might be 2 years away. When teams rely on like shooting, sometimes shooting can be really streaky, and then young teams never really make deep runs in hoopsteria. Like it takes like literally like several bona fide stars on young teams to make deep runs. Other than that, yeah, it's not gonna happen.
And that leads me to the final team I want to bring up with you in this contenders or pretenders mini segment, and that's Jackson State. We talked about D. Woodley earlier in the show, and he's been playing his best basketball as of late. Jackson State's won 7 in a row. They're ranked again. They're looking like they're a real force in the American. I believe they're in second in the conference right now, behind only Memphis. Are you in on what this team's capable of?
And I know this is gonna be hilarious because anybody who's ever heard me talk about this guy knows that I am not a fan of him at all. Definitely a stark difference in what we believe is good basketball. But I think with Diva D Woodley, I do think that this team is a contender. I think they make a mid-level run. I think they could even make a deep run if their defense has been on, and then D Woodley has looked like a true de facto leader for once in his career. I think this team can be dangerous if everything goes right. Now, of course, the basketball gods are sometimes really fickle, and guys that are usually shot hitters become shot breakers in a matter of seconds. But I do think with everything that they've shown so far, I do think they can make a deep run.
Yeah, and Roy Mason's been great. Richard Alpine, Renzo Bryant. A lot of pieces on this Jackson State team that I really like, and Mo Williams has done a really good job kind of righting the ship a little bit. So I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think they are contenders. I think Wisconsin is pretenders, and I think that Auburn is a team where if they get the right Barkley James, they could surprise some people because they did lose early last year, and I do like Bruce Pearl as a coach, but back to Jackson State, they are like D Woodley's looked great lately. He had 11 rebounds on Wednesday night. He's 5'11". Like, he's been better as a playmaker. He's not chucking up shots anymore. We're seeing D Woodley play with more confidence. And I think it's kind of paying off. But that's going to do it for this episode of the J-Rock Show. Coach Drayton, it was great having you on, my man. You know you're welcome back anytime. Can't wait to have you back on when you're with the Orange next season. And for those of you who tuned in at home, appreciate you tuning in as always. Remember, folks, SimWorld is the only place you can see the game, be the game. Have a great week, and be on the lookout for some great content in the next couple days and weeks going forward. Stay great, everybody.